ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track, and ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
What if it's not unsafe there, but rather just deeply, deeply uncomfortable? What if receiving requires me to trust all of it, allow all of it, surrender to all of it? And when I'm referring to all of it, I'm referring to all of the emotions, all of the terrifying and impactful emotional experiences that come with it. So back to my journal. I said, even if the walls are collapsing in, the sobs are stuck in my throat. What if it all matters? It's all part of the process and it's all just okay. What if I just let it go? What if I just let it go? You're listening to Make Some Noise Podcast, episode number 678. Welcome to Make Some Noise Podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am so glad that you are here. Thank you so much for choosing to spend your time with me. I am so grateful for that. It's not lost on me. And therefore, I try to put out the absolute best personal growth things possible for you. And today I have a solo episode. It's all about receiving. And it's been a topic that's been on my mind lately. And so I decided to break it down and create an episode for you where hopefully you can learn some things, have some takeaways, and see where this comes up in your life. But before I do that, quick announcement. I have opened up spots for single sessions to work with me privately. If you don't feel like you're ready for a coaching package that has lots of different sessions in it, if you want like a little taste of what it's like to work with me, or maybe you just have one thing that you need to work out, like a decision that you need to make, a hard conversation that you need to have with someone where you have no idea what to say or how to say it and don't have the courage to do it, I can hold you accountable. That's where a single session can be helpful to you. And so it's at andreaowen.com/single. These particular sessions are $177. You can only buy one at a time. And I'm just excited to get to connect with more people this way. So let's get into it. Let's talk about receiving. This episode topic came to me from a ketamine session. As I've mentioned before, I have been doing ketamine therapy for over a year now. So, the round I'm on now is my 3rd round of 6 at-home sessions. And I have a private podcast feed that is separate from this one, where I go into more detail about psychedelic therapy as a whole, more specifically my experience with it, that is going to be updated soon. That link will be in the show notes if you want to grab a few episodes that are specifically about that psychedelic therapy. But this one is more so about my key takeaways of where I'm struggling around the topic of receiving and like really what it is. What does it mean to receive, and how does it look in our lives? And also it has a little bit to do with receiving love and receiving money. What came out of this particular ketamine session was sort of, kind of gobsmacked me a little bit, as most of them do. So I'm going to read a little bit from my journal entry that I had right after that session and kind of break down for you what the art of receiving actually can look like, and some tips and strategies on being able to do more than that. So here's where I'm going to start. I sat down to do a particular ketamine session, again, in my third round, and each round is 6 sessions. I think this was my third session in this third round. I sat down with the intention to understand how to fully receive. And I wrote down the following question that was an intention. The question is, what do I need to know to feel fully able to receive and to feel safe to do so? For me, I tied it to a theme where receiving can be complicated for me. So receiving love, it's loaded. Receiving safety even sometimes can be complicated. Receiving money, which seems so strange. Why would anyone have a hard or complicated time receiving money? I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And even this is tied into surrender a little bit. So I just felt like I would love to focus. I would like to tap into my subconscious and learn whatever it is I need to know about receiving. So let's talk about control. Because here is the first thing that came to me as the ketamine started to run through my bloodstream. And the way that it works, just to kind of paint you a picture, if you're not interested in going and listening to the psychedelic therapy episodes, I should say, is that you put the medicine in your mouth. There are these tablets that dissolve, and then you lie back for about an hour and you start to, I guess you would call it, have a psychedelic experience, you start to trip, as the slang word is for it. And you have a eye mask on, there's music playing, and you just sort of lay back and let the medicine show you whatever it's going to show you. The first thing that came to me, and for me, for a lot of people, they see visuals, they see kind of like, it looks like a dream. Also, they see colors and shapes and things like that. That happens to me a little bit more so, like the dream visualizations. I mostly hear phrases and words similar to how I hear my intuition. So that's what speaks through me. They're kind of like thoughts, kind of like hearing someone's voice in the room that's not mine. Sort of a combination of that. It's hard for me to explain. And I do see some visuals I have in past ketamine sessions, but for the most part, I hear things. And so that's what happened during this session. I heard the following, and it was so clear, and I usually don't do this during ketamine sessions. I took my eye mask off because it was very early in the session. I got my pen and I wrote down, if I surrender to receiving, I can't control the pace or the amount I have to allow. And I wrote the word allow in big letters and drew like stars all around it. Then I wrote, I need to trust in order to receive, and I need to surrender in order to receive. And so those two action words are what jumped out at me: trust and surrender. Surrender was a topic I did in the Coming Home to Yourself series last month or the month before. I will link to that in the show notes. I did get a decent amount of feedback about that particular episode and how helpful it was to understand what surrendering means and how to apply it in your life. And those of you that struggle with it, which every single person that talked to me about it and told me that they liked it said that they do struggle with it. I just want to repeat that. If I surrender to receiving, I can't control the pace or the amount I have to allow. This points to control. I have told you about how I've struggled with control and how to stop feeling like shit. It's one of the chapters in there, one of the habits. I think that it is part of the human experience. It's universal that we as humans tend to not like uncertainty. It makes us feel unsafe. And so we try to control anything that we can. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing, right? This is why we make spreadsheets of our budgets. We, we like to measure things so that we can control how safe we are. So it's all interrelated. And for me, I know for a fact that I have struggled to relinquish control in my relationships, mostly in my romantic relationships. And I also talked about that in one of those 10 Life Lesson podcast episodes about long-term relationships, as well as the one that came right after that in changing my relationship to love. And that for me, it's been a big life lesson, especially after I left my second marriage in 2023, to let go of the way that someone else loves me and how they show it and all of it. Because at the end of the day, I really don't have any control over that. And when I am trying to control someone's behavior, trying to control their emotions, trying to control the way that they behave towards me and show me that they love me, that is an attempt to heal a wound that person, it's not their responsibility to heal it. Like their only real responsibility is to love me as they will, as what comes naturally for them, as they see fit, as exactly to the depth that they are allowed to go, that they're available to go. And so I think that when we aren't aware of that, when we aren't aware of the wound, when we aren't aware of the things, the behaviors that we do, even the thoughts that we have that are trying to repair that wound and heal that wound and maybe even avoid even thinking about it, when we're trying to control our partner's behavior and how they feel about us, how they treat us, especially when they have shown us that they are either not capable of doing that or not willing to do that, that's where we really get into trouble. We take it personally. We make it mean something about us, and it really blocks our ability to experience the fullness of life. Like, I'm going to be that dramatic about it. It blocks our ability to truly be in a healthy, loving relationship with someone, and it can harm in more ways than that. In addition, what I have found is that I tend to act out and feel the same way towards money. I feel like if I can have control over this, then I will be safe. And this is an easy one to argue, right? Because it's like, well, obviously we need money to survive. It's the currency that we use in this time and space of existence to live, to pay our bills, to have a fulfilling life. Of course, we need to control the amount and timing of money as it comes in, or else we wouldn't be able to live. We wouldn't be able to think about anything else. I get it. And at the same time, I tend to continue to do that even if I have a steady stream of income, even if I have money in the bank, even if on paper I am technically safe, but I have found that I still run into issues in terms of trying to force things, in terms of stressing out about things that I really don't need to. So that's what I was trying to get to the bottom of, because I'm like, if I keep circling back to this topic, whether it comes from love or money, and I was also noticing that like I've come a long way with love. Let me see if I can take it in the same direction with money. The way that I connected them and then decided to bring it to a ketamine session and then decided to bring it here on the podcast was that I realized that my issue with love, more specifically around romantic relationships, was that I had a block in terms of receiving love. I looked back at my love life, and I'm 50. I have some history. I have some data. And that data pointed to the fact that I tended to attract and fall in love in relationships where people could not give me the type of love that I really truly wanted. And this was all happening in my subconscious. My conscious mind is like, of course I will allow someone to love me. Of course I can attract someone. Of course I want to attract someone who is not only willing, but capable of loving me the way that I want to, that I need to be loved, that I can see myself being in a relationship with that type of person. But what was happening in my subconscious, my subconscious was like giggling, like, girl, that's cute that you think that you can do that, but you can't. And what that comes down to is like the primary experiences that I had as a child where it felt inconsistent and I felt like I was too much, and therefore created this story that because I am too much, because love is inconsistent, the way I experience it is inconsistent, regardless of anyone else's story and how they showed up. The way I was experiencing it was inconsistency. Therefore, I grow up to repeat the same pattern so that I can heal that child, my inner child. And this points to Harv Hendricks' work. He wrote a book many years ago called Getting the Love You Want. It's a very popular relationship book. And in it, his theory is that through these primary experiences that we have as children with our primary caregivers, we create a persona in our mind, in our subconscious, based on the positive and negative characteristics of our primary caregivers. We grow up, we meet someone, even in the first couple of dates, before we have even had a deep conversation with them, before we even really know anything about them. We grow up and we meet someone who has the potential to be an intimate partner, someone that we would date. And the more of those characteristics they check off, the more attracted we are to them. It is our subconscious that's doing this in an effort to heal those primary experiences that we had as children. This is why we hear people say, I cannot believe I married my father. I can't believe you are just like my mother. Things like that. And it ends up being a mirror. We end up being attracted to people who are our mirror. And it is not up to our partners to be the person who is so different and they heal our broken hearts. It is up to us to heal our broken hearts. I am not saying that you need to forgive people who have bad behavior in your relationships. All I'm saying is that all of these things are connected. The way that we grow up, the way that we love, the way that we receive or don't receive love. That's what I mean by that. And it can be directly tied to money. So let me take a quick ad break. I'm going to talk about how we try to protect ourselves in this way. Be right back. If you're a woman over 40 dealing with perimenopause, you don't have to accept it as just another part of aging. Did you know there are so many perimenopause symptoms? Hot flashes and night sweats, trouble sleeping, painful sex, vaginal dryness, and libido change, weight and body changes, brain fog and memory lapses, moodiness, anxiety and depression, period problems, hair and skin changes, joint pain, bone loss, and fracture risk. The experts at MIDI Health understand what you're experiencing and know how to help. MIDI clinicians are menopause experts dedicated to providing safe, effective, FDA-approved solutions. Visits and prescriptions are covered by major insurance providers, no membership fees or hidden costs. If you're uninsured or Medicare is out of network under your plan, they also offer affordable cash payment for services. I know for me, as I'm about to turn 50 in 2025, finding a doctor that specializes in perimenopause and menopause is incredibly important. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com.
Carla only.
Let me just tell you, Cozy Earth makes the most comfortable pajamas I've ever worn in my life. I am not exaggerating when I tell you this. The fabric is insanely soft. It feels like someone spun it from clouds and whispered affirmations into it. And don't get me started on the sheets. They're like butter. I have a white set. They're cool, luxurious, and yes, I actually look forward to crawling into bed like it's a spa appointment. Now that the weather's warming up, I've noticed how well they regulate temperature. I run fairly hot at night, like I wake up sweaty, the back of my neck, but these sheets, game changer. Pajamas, game changer. I sleep cooler and wake up actually rested. And when I'm wearing their pajamas in the morning, especially on the weekends, I stay in them for half the day. I feel spoiled, treat myself level spoiled. Honestly, Cozy Earth has made my bedtime and slow mornings feel like a full-on ritual. And if you haven't tried them yet, you are absolutely missing out. But here's the good news. They have a 100-night trial and a 10-year warranty. So if you're not obsessed, you can send it back. But trust me, you won't want to. Luxury shouldn't be out of reach. Use code NOISE for 40% off best-selling sheets, pajamas, and more. Trust me, you won't regret it. Sanctuary awaits at Cozy Earth. Let's be honest, life is a lot right now. Stress is high, anxiety is creeping in, and it's easy to feel like you're barely holding it together. If that's where you're at, or even if you simply love feeling a little more grounded, Headspace might be exactly what you need. It's the app that's helped me feel more grounded, less overwhelmed, and so much calmer. Whether it's guided meditations, breathing exercises, or a quick calming tool, it's full of practices that actually work. And no matter where you are on your mindfulness journey, total newbie or someone who's been meditating for years or somewhere in between, like I am, there's always something that meets you right where you are. Honestly, every time I open the app, it feels like it was made just for me. When I'm short on time, those go-to sessions are perfect. I absolutely love their breathing exercises. And with over 1,000 hours of content, I can always find something that fits my day and my mood. So if you're ready to actually mean it when you say, I'm good, Headspace can help. Feel good and mean it when you say it. For a limited time, get Headspace free for 60 days. Go to headspace.com/make some noise. That's HEADSPACE.com/make some noise to unlock all of Headspace free for 60 days. Headspace.com/make some noise. All right. When we realize that we might have a hard time receiving love, might have a hard time receiving money, and that we're blocking love, we're blocking money, that is because the blocking part is we are trying to protect ourselves from disappointment. We do this by not receiving. We do this by, more specifically, attempting to micromanage. We try to micromanage love. We try to micromanage money in an attempt to protect ourselves. But instead, what ends up happening, or what could end up happening, is that we're blocking ourselves from receiving the money and love that are trying to come to us. So that is sort of the gist of my experience, what I've seen in a lot of my clients, may or may not be you, but this is what I was trying to get to the bottom of. And again, I had that very first download. If I surrender to receiving, whether it's money or whether it's love, I can't control the pace or the amount that I have to allow for it all to come in. And that, to me, was terrifying. P.S., little sidebar, this is directly related to worthiness. I know that there's a lot of you listening who are super clear on your worthiness wound, and you are clear that you feel you have moments, whether you have moments or you know it's deeply embedded in your subconscious, that you feel like you're not worthy of love, of connection, of belonging, of relationships, money, all the best things of life. I don't feel that way. I've mentioned on the podcast here, mine is the same. It's just dressed up in a totally different outfit. The way that mine looks is that my core fear, my core wound is that no one really cares about me. They tell me that they do. They might even show me that they do, but at the end of the day, they don't 100%. They mostly do maybe, but not 100%. What that points to is primary experiences of inconsistency. My fear is that people, like, I'm getting played, basically. like y'all are just messing with me, right? I'm going to wake up one day or open my email or have a conversation with someone and they're going to tell me that it's over. That has happened to me, right? Like, we've all been broken up with or ghosted or left and abandoned. But mine is not only that fear, because I know that happens in life, and I know that I can survive it. It sucks, but I know I can survive it. Mine is not only that somebody will leave me, but they'll on the way out the door say, I never really loved you. It was all just an act. Joke's on you. That's my biggest fear. I also wonder if some of that is residual from my traumatic experience I had when I was 30, where, my first husband had an affair with our neighbor, and that was deeply, deeply traumatic, which is something else I've been working through psychedelic therapy, and it's been incredibly helpful. But all this to say, receiving can trigger old nervous system patterns of fear, of unworthiness, of safety, of self-sufficiency. It can trigger things that have more to do with just fear of abandonment or fear of rejection. It can kind of bleed out into other things. And what I don't want to have happen to you listening is that you are sort of looking for things to worry about or add to your self-help list of things that you need to work on. So my hope is that you can listen to this on a surface level, and if something resonates, you're like, "Oh my gosh, that's me too." To kind of simplify it, if I had to kind of quote my subconscious and a little bit of my inner critic, it says, if I've had to hustle for love, which is something that I equate to like a need, like a human need, right? We need human connection, not necessarily like romantic relationships, but we do need human connection in the form of love. My subconscious says, if I've had to hustle for love, I'll have to hustle for money too, because both love and money represent safety, warmth, just the essential parts of living. So if I've had to hustle for love, I'll hustle for money too, and neither will feel safe to actually receive. So it's sort of like, I look at it, if I had to visualize it, like I'll receive it, I get like begrudgingly, and I'm going to like close my eyes and be bracing myself for impact as it comes in, whether that's love or whether that's money. So that's what I was really trying to get to the bottom of. And I hope that I've painted a well enough picture for you to understand what the problem might look like. And so again, I had that download. If I surrender to receiving, I can't control the pace or the amount I have to allow. I have to trust to receive. I have to surrender to receive. Both love and money equal safety. And really to kind of sum all that up is that the action required is I have to sit back and surrender. Not only surrender, I have to sit back, surrender, and allow to receive both love and money. So moving on, during the ketamine session around receiving, I saw some pretty big things and heard some pretty big things. And I'm going to create a podcast episode on that private psychedelic therapy series that I have, where I'm going to read word for word from my journal. And it's very dark and deep. And to me, that's what happens when I am either in a very deep emotional place, whether it's deeply in love or deeply in grief or deeply enraged, whatever it is, whatever holy emotion I'm feeling. But for this podcast episode, I'm going to sort of like give you the highlights, and I'm going to jump a little bit towards solution. And the first part that I saw and felt and heard was around emotions. And it doesn't, on the other side now, it doesn't surprise me all that much that this is directly tied to emotions, because I have come to realize in the nearly 20 years that I've been doing this for a living and longer on my own personal growth journey, that so much of our power, so much of our self-awareness and learning about ourselves, so much of our growth and transformation to the next level and evolution is tied to the amount that we are willing to go, the depth that we are willing to go to allow in and process all of our emotions. And I know I make it sound really simple, and it kind of is and it kind of isn't. It's simple in terms of just me talking about it as a topic, but in reality and what it looks like, it's going to depend on the situation of your life and where you're at in your evolution. So I'm going to describe it like this. I saw it as a metaphor. The term that came to me was a mixing of all of the emotions. And then I heard a potion, an emotion potion. And I imagined a beaker, that you use in science lab experiments. And someone was sort of like swishing it around, a mixing of all of the emotions, like mixing together a potion, an emotion potion. That's what I wrote in my journal. And then I said they were all there in order for me to fully allow, underlined, fully allow, in order for me to fully receive. And here's how I put that all together. Every feeling that we have, fear, joy, longing, grief, rage, happiness, all of it, gets stirred up together in our bodies, in our souls, in our mind even. And that's what creates our capacity. Because no matter what, no matter how much we receive, whether it's love, money, fulfillment, happiness, whatever, it's going to trigger emotions. I'm a believer that we're only going to get, whether it's love, money, whatever, as much as we have the capacity to receive and allow. Receiving is not a clean process. It's not a sterile container that has a limit. It's infinite. It's messy and it's wild and it certainly is vulnerable. Whew, is it vulnerable? And it's holy as well. But I do know for certain that allowing and receiving is not linear. It can be pretty wild and messy. I also want to pause here and talk about that for just a second. So if you've been listening to my podcast long enough or read any of my books, you might know that I grew up, I think like a lot of you, in a very loving home, and also not a lot of room for the big, messy emotions. This is not to blame and shame anyone that raised me. They are wonderful human beings and also didn't have the tools to receive that, to hold space for that, et cetera. So I think for most of us, we grow up really are like a baby deer when it comes to our emotional capacity. And so we learn by example, we learn by our experiences, and we get to a place where we settle with whatever feels safe. And usually that's not a lot. I'll give you an example. And this happened during my ketamine session. I saw moments where other people could not receive me. I realized after the session that those were pivotal moments in my history, in my life, where it seemed to an outsider, it might seem like an innocuous circumstance that happened. However, it planted a seed. It planted a seed more specifically around receiving, being received and allowing, and hence was emotional. First example, I was in middle school and I grew up in a Lutheran church. I mean, I grew up in a house, but like going to church. I think you know what I mean. That was the religion that raised me. I remember it was in, I believe, 7th or 8th grade, whatever grade you're in when you go through confirmation in the Lutheran church. I can't remember, but it was one of those 2 years. I knew from a child, I felt that I have been here before. I have walked this earth before. No idea, very unclear about past life or lives. I don't have any knowledge of that, but I for sure have a familiar feeling that I have been here before. I have walked this earth before. It very much always has resonated with me, talking about reincarnation, souls coming back and things like that. I was so excited to talk to our pastor about it because he was my spiritual mentor, truly, and had been since I was very little. The nicest man you'll ever meet. Saw him a few years ago, actually, at my dear brother-in-law's funeral. He was there because he married my sister and her late husband. There I am, 7th grade, maybe 12, and I'm sitting in his office, all excited to talk to him about this. And I told him what I just told you. I feel so confident that my soul has walked this earth before, completely prepared to have a really great conversation about it. And he paused and looked at me and he said, "Andrea, we don't believe that as Lutherans." And I was crushed. I was absolutely crushed, disappointed, felt rejected, felt stupid, and also felt like I didn't belong. It was the first time I can remember in my history having someone tell me I was wrong for listening to my intuition, for receiving a message from what I felt was God. I was like, "No, wait, God told me this. The universe told me this. Like, what do you mean I'm wrong?" And it was such a moment of disconnect for me that it planted a seed. Later on in high school, I was a senior. I did a bad thing. I made a bad choice. I was drinking Bartles and James wine coolers in the school parking lot I know, it wasn't just me. It was a group of about 10 of us. It was before a school dance. Did you guys have MORP in high school? It's prom spelled backwards, and like you can dress up in ridiculous outfits. You can come in costume if you want. Like the rules are backwards and changed. Anyway, who doesn't drink Bartles and James wine coolers and cheap beer when you're 17, 18 years old before a school dance? Anyway, so we got caught by the cops, actually. Of course, I didn't tell my parents when I went home that weekend, but on Monday I got called into the principal's office, and it was the principal and the vice principal. I was talking to both of them, and the vice principal, I remember what his name is. I will not say it here on the show, but it was towards the end of my senior year. I may have been 18 at that point, and this man was maybe 30. But of course, when you're that young, you think anyone over like 27 is a whole ass old adult. I remember him, every time I would look at him to talk to him or to answer a question, he would break eye contact with me. And I could tell intuitively, and because I was old enough to know at that point, I was making him uncomfortable. I think back on that, of the things that the trend back then, clothing choices that we wore. I wore very short shorts. I probably had on a tight bodysuit, and that was making him uncomfortable, and I could tell. And then it made me uncomfortable, and I felt like I had done something wrong. Like I should not be there that close to him, dressed like this, and trying to make eye contact. And I was also frustrated and angry, understanding what was happening, that I didn't have any control over the situation, and that he wasn't really listening to me. So those two scenes popped up during my ketamine therapy session. So what that showed me was that this is my history. This is my evidence of not being received by other people, not being received by people who were in positions of power, who knew more than me, who were authority figures. So if these two people could not receive me, could not receive my ideas, could not receive messages that I had received from the universe, could not receive my presence, my energy, my appearance, is anything safe at all? If you can't receive me, how is it even safe for me to receive anything at all? And I came out of the session thinking like, God damn it. It's both eye-opening and exciting to have these aha moments, but also frustrating. And I'm like, is that why I remember those small circumstances that seem like on the outside, like shouldn't really mean anything, shouldn't be that big of a deal? Is that the seed that it planted? When you realize something that on the outside does not seem like a big deal, really is a big deal, it can really feel like you got hit by a truck. And in that instance, my biggest takeaway was that I learned at a fairly early age that if I am unsafe for others to receive, should I be okay receiving? And the answer was no. We're going to take another quick break. And when we come back, I'm going to talk about the biggest takeaways that I got from that particular therapy session, as well as some ways to work through this. So we'll be right back.
New Vitamin Water Zero Sugar Pineapple Passion Fruit is packed with vitamins, just like the amount of peas we packed in that sentence. It's packed like your tote bag, the one you stole from your ex, or your overpriced half a studio apartment, or extra rushed rush hour traffic. Packed like your calendar, triple booked at 5, of course. Grab a Vitamin Water. Did we mention it's packed with vitamins?
So, you just started using LinkedIn Premium. Now what? Well, on your premium company page, you noticed around 7.5 times more page engagement and 5 times more page views. Well done. And now, new clients are messaging you. All because you're using LinkedIn Premium, which helps you get the business growth you want. Think big, small business. Think big. Start your free trial at linkedin.com/premium small business. That's linkedin.com/premium small business.
All right, here we go.
New Phineas and Ferb is here.
We're back, baby.
For 104 more days
I know what we're gonna do today.
of summer vacation.
I am ready for summer shenanigans. Let's do it. Oh, yeah.
All right. We're gonna bust Phineas and Ferb once and for all. Are we gonna do this again?
New inventions, shenanigans, innators, adventures, and songs.
Brand new summer vacation.
New Phineas and Ferb starts June 5th on Disney Channel and next day on Disney Plus on disneyplus.disney.com.
So one of my other big takeaways during that ketamine session was understanding that the impact that it had on me to have the decades of history that I've had with love and with money, and also knowing what it's like to lose everything. When you've lived a few decades, you probably know the crushing experience of losing love, losing a big, big love. You probably know the experience of losing money and perhaps of losing everything. Regardless if it's love or money, when you lose something that feels like safety and security, it can have an extra bold flavor of crushing and makes you terrified, live in terror to ever go back there. And for me, I realized that that was embedded in my subconscious. So it became easier for me to stay in a place of not allowing. I would rather stay in a place of rock bottom. I would rather stay in a place of terror, of being a victim, of having this terrifying, sad, scary sob story and tell everyone about it and have meltdowns, rather than go back to the place of having love and having money for fear that it was all going to be taken away. That realization was the biggest epiphany for me to turn my head and ask myself the question, okay, what happens if I open myself up to receive and allow? Well, my first answer is, okay, then I run the risk of losing everything again. And then as a good coach that I am to coach myself, I'll say, and then what? And then that would be terrible. And then I would find myself back in that same dark place again. And then what? So I just the way that I work through it is just keep asking myself the question, like, how resilient are you? You've been there before. Then what might happen? Do you have the resources and the smarts and the experience to be able to get yourself out of that place? So that's kind of the map of how that went for me in terms of working through it. So I'll read you an excerpt from my journal. So in my journal, I had talked about what I call the dark place, and I go into great detail about that dark place that we've all been. I say, and there's an ellipsis right before this because I'm kind of starting in the middle of a paragraph. I say, what if it's not unsafe there? And I'm referring to the dark place. What if it's not unsafe there, but rather just deeply, deeply uncomfortable? What if receiving requires me to trust all of it, allow all of it, surrender to all of it? And when I'm referring to all of it, I'm referring to all of the emotions, all of the terrifying and impactful emotional experiences that come with it. So back to my journal. I said, even if the walls are collapsing in, the sobs are stuck in my throat, what if it all matters? It's all part of the process, and it's all just okay. What if I just let it go? What if I just let it go? Unquote. That's the end of my journal entry. By let it go, I mean let the attachment go that the emotions might kill me. Let the attachment go that this needs to become my identity. Let the attachment go that I will not survive, because that's the belief that I had made up. The belief of that I will not survive this again. This is the place I belong. The place that I belong is not having any love in my life. No one's going to love me the way I need to be loved. I will never find them. What if I let go of the belief that having a lot of money is just going to lead to more problems, more money, more problems? What if I let go of the belief that I will never come back out if I hit rock bottom again in regard to money? It's the beliefs that I'm talking about, letting go of the beliefs. What if I could live my life from a place of a clean slate of What if I believed nothing at all about it? What if I believed positive things? What if I believed neutral things? Like all of those are possibilities. It's just thoughts. It's literally made up thoughts. And P.S., on a side note, can we talk for a second about how money is all made up too? I was thinking about this the other day. It's now, because no one really deals with cash anymore, it's all just numbers in a computer. It's literally numbers in a computer. The money that you have in your retirement, your 401k, your savings account, maybe your negative balance in your checking account, literally just numbers in a computer or printed out on a page. Isn't that wild? It doesn't even actually exist. It's all made up. I don't know if that's helpful for anyone. Sometimes it's helpful for me to think of it that way because I'm like, am I getting all hot and bothered and losing sleep and crying over something that's all made up, that's just numbers on a page? Sure am. All right. So in closing, I'm going to repeat some of the things around takeaways and some questions for maybe you to answer for yourself as you journal or as you think about this topic. What if you didn't resist the emotions? What if you didn't resist the sobs, the grief, the rage, the fear, the collapse, the rock bottom? What if you just allowed all of it in? Because to do so would also mean that storm will end and the sun is going to rise again on the other end. And it's going to come with all new circumstances, all new emotions. What if we just allowed the entire process, the shedding of the skin, the burning down, the rising up from the ashes? What if receiving simply means trusting the full range of your humanity? Wow. I am going to write that one down and journal on it. What if receiving and allowing means trusting the full range of your beautiful, gorgeous humanity? And I'm going to end with this. Maybe receiving isn't something that we do. Maybe receiving is something we become. Thank you for being here. If this topic truly resonated with you and you want to dig into it more, you can book a single session with me. You don't need to commit. AndreaOwen.com/single. And remember, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye for now. Hey everyone, thanks again for listening. I would be so incredibly grateful if you haven't done so already, if you could leave a review of this podcast on Apple Podcasts. Super easy if you already listen to your shows over there. But if you don't, or maybe you have the app on your phone, but you listen to this show on a different app, if you could leave a review for this show, it matters so much. I wish I could express how much it matters. I also wish that it didn't matter so much, but alas, it does. So if you haven't already, please go review and rate the show. It would mean so much to me. And thank you so much. I hope you have an amazing day.